Hello, second graders. This is Miss Broyhill bringing you your clay art lesson for January, I think the 8th. And I know I told you guys if you could get access to some clay, Model Magic works, modeling clay works, Play-Doh works, Sculpty works, but those are all man-made clays, and you can buy them in different colors. The Model Magic, you can actually take markers and add color to it. If you buy the white, you can actually mix it up, mash it back together and roll it out and get some color, kind of like tie-dye swirls on it if you want. But if you want some earthenware clay, which is clay that comes from the earth, send me a dojo and I can send you some to the office that you can pick up from Vanessa. Earthenware clay, if you remember in first grade and in kindergarten, the more you work with it, the more dried out it will be, so it needs to stay moist. So you might need a little cup of water. You guys at school, I usually have a paper clip. This is a clay potter's needle that I use to draw designs and scratch onto the clay when I attach parts to it. So we're going to be making a coil pot, and if you remember in kindergarten and in first grade, we would roll out some snakes to make coils. Well, we call them coils in the art world. In the kindergarten, we used to call them snakes because that's kind of what they look like. So when you get your clay, pinch off some small amounts, probably about as big as a golf ball, maybe a little bit smaller. And what we will do, you can take, after you pinch the clay off, you can roll it around and in your hand or on the table and turn it into a ball. It does not have to be very smooth. Then after you roll it out into a ball, it's about as big as a golf ball. That's a good size. Then you can start rolling it back and forth in your hand and on the table. So when you do this, wherever you're putting pressure, it's going to get skinnier. So we're trying to make a coil. So pay attention to how much pressure you're putting on it and roll it. Sometimes it gets little flat spots on it, but you got to keep pushing and rolling until it is probably about a good size is about as thick as a pencil or a marker. That's a good size. So I would take a pencil and marker and compare it to the coil clay that we're rolling out. And all of them will be different lengths. It depends on how much clay you have. So right now this is about as thick as a marker. I want to try to get it about the size of a pencil. So we're going to make the bottom of our coil pot. And I'll take a little bit of water on the earthenware clay, not on the modeling clay or the modeling magic. You don't need to do that. Or Play-Doh. Just earthenware clay. So I have just wet it just a little bit and it's kind of shiny. So I'm going to roll it up like, I call it a cinnamon roll. Or a snail shell. Try not to get too big of a hole in the center there. And I'm trying to press it and roll it at the same time so it will stick. With earthenware clay, you've got to do that or it will just come apart. So this is going to be the bottom of your coil pot. If you want to go bigger for the bottom, all you got to do is make another coil. Add it on to where you just left off. You just do the same step. So I'm going to let this be the bottom of mine. I'm okay with that size. And then set it over here to the side. Get another lump of clay. Probably about as big as a golf ball. Roll it around. Then start rolling it out. If you go too fast, sometimes it'll break. If it breaks, it's not a big deal. Even with earthenware clay, just still attach it to your pot and just wherever it broke, just pick it up where you left off. Now with your coil pot, you can go as high, ever how much clay you've got, you can go as high as you want to. If you're doing earthenware clay, it gets pretty heavy if you get really tall. If you're using modeling clay and such as that, you can go as tall as you want to. Okay, now I'm going to add on to my base, and I'm only going to build up on the outside edge, and you're going straight up because it's going to be a pot. If you remember a pinch pot from last year, we're going up. So you got to add a little water if you're using earthenware clay, and you just stack it on top of itself. So you go on top. Try to keep it going straight up. A lot of kids want to go in a little bit. Try to keep it straight up, and don't pinch it. You push down on it a little bit of pressure. A lot of kids will pinch this really, really thin. You don't want that. You want it to be a little thick. Okay, so I can roll out my next coil and just pick up where I left off and keep going up. And you can go as tall as you want to, or how much clay you've got with your coil pot. Now, if you wanted to, I'm going to stop on this. It's not very tall, but I'm going to stop on this. You can keep going. You can also make a lid for your coil pot. All you're going to do is the same thing that you did with the bottom. Make sure it's a little bit bigger than your pot, or it'll just fall into it. Now, if you wanted to make a handle to go on your coil pot, you could. Just roll out a snake. Just remember, when you add it on here, wet it, stick it on there, and put some pressure on it, or it will just fall off. Now, if you're using man-made clay, that's not going to happen. That's just with earthenware clay. So I've got a lot of extra clay left, and your coil pot, if you decide that you want to use the clay that I've got at school that I can give to you, pick it up, keep it moist and flexible, put your initials on the bottom, bring it back to me while it's still moist in a plastic bag somehow, and put your initials on it. I will fire it for you. If you remember last year when you did your pinch pots, I fired it, it came back, and it was ceramic, and we painted them. So I can do the same thing for you now, but you just got to get those initials on there so I will know whose it is, because I will have a lot of pottery to fire. And you can paint it when you get it back. You can't put any kind of liquid in it because it will just wash off your paint. If we were a real potter, I guess you could say, we could put glaze on it and you could eat out of it or drink out of it. But if you got any gaps or holes inside your pot, of course it's not going to hold anything. So this pottery is what you would call, it's not as functional as like a coffee cup. It's more for decoration, but you could save, you could put some change in it, your earrings, your Legos, your keys. It could save little items for you in it that you could didn't want to lose. So it's a little functional, but not like pottery that you might make to eat or drink out of. So we'll be doing more functional pottery and using some glaze when you get in the 4th grade. So you'll get to see how glaze works for how real potters use it. So I hope you have fun with it. You know, if you're using man-made clay, you can, you know, mash it back together and reuse it. I think Play-Doh, if you leave it to air dry, I think it crumbles. So Play-Doh wouldn't work good for reusing it. But modeling clay, you can reuse it over and over. Model Magic, you have to leave it out for about 72 hours and it gets hard. I'm not sure if you can paint Model Magic. I've never done that before. So this is my first year working with Model Magic at school. So I'm learning too as far as that goes, because I'm always using regular clay, which is my favorite. So I hope you enjoy it, and you guys message me and let me know what you want to do with your clay, or send me some pictures of your coil pot when you get finished.